I never thought something as simple as watching movies in my own backyard could stir up so much trouble. It all started on a warm summer evening, just after the sun had dipped below the rooftops of my quiet neighborhood. The fireflies were out, the air smelled of fresh-cut grass, and I had just finished setting up my little portable projector. Nothing fancy, just a white sheet strung across the fence, a few folding chairs scattered around, and a big bowl of popcorn ready for whoever wanted to join. At first, it was just me and my kids. We watched old classics, Disney films, and sometimes a new release I managed to rent. But soon, the neighbors began to notice. A couple from down the street brought their lawn chairs. A single mom from around the corner came with her 2 boys, carrying soda bottles in their hands. Then more people started to drift in, curious about the glow and laughter coming from my backyard. Within a few weeks, our backyard movie nights became a tradition. Friday nights were special. People brought snacks to share, homemade cookies, nachos, even barbecue wings. The kids spread out blankets on the grass while the adults lounged in chairs, swapping stories and enjoying the cool evening air. The movies were almost secondary. What mattered most was the connection. For a few hours, the stress of work, bills, and life melted away as we all laughed and cried together under the stars. It was simple. It was pure. It was community. But of course, in every story like this, there's always someone who can't stand to see people happy. In my case, that someone was the HOA. The first letter came folded neatly in an envelope, slipped into my mailbox. The HOA logo was stamped in the corner, giving it a strange air of importance. Inside, the words were cold, legalistic, and to the point. Seize all unauthorized gatherings immediately. Your backyard activities violate community guidelines regarding noise, light, and property use. I remember holding that paper and laughing out loud. Noise? It was a projector, not a rock concert. Light. The glow from my screen was softer than the street lamps the HOA themselves had installed. Property use. It was my backyard, my land, my home. I crumpled the letter and tossed it aside, brushing it off as some overzealous board member flexing their power. But I underestimated how serious they were. The next week, just as I was starting the movie, a man in a polo shirt with a clipboard walked right up to my fence. He didn't introduce himself, didn't even smile. He just cleared his throat and said, "This has to stop. You're in violation of HOA rules. We've received complaints." I asked him, "Complaints from who?" "Everyone here is enjoying themselves." Nobody's upset. He just scribbled something on his clipboard and walked away. The air felt colder after that. The following week, I received another letter, this time a warning of fines. If I continued, I'd be charged $100 for every illegal gathering, and if I refused to pay, they'd place a lien on my house. I can't lie, was angry, furious even. But more than that, I was hurt. I wasn't throwing loud parties. I wasn't damaging property. I wasn't disturbing the peace. I was bringing people together, and they wanted to shut it down. Still, I didn't want to give up. So the next Friday, I set everything up again. I figured, what's the worst they could do? But as the first scene flickered onto the screen, headlights cut across the yard. An HOA board member had actually called the local security patrol. They stood at the edge of my property, arms crossed as though I were some kind of criminal. Families who had come with their kids shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to stay or leave. The joy that usually filled the air turned into tension. That night, I ended the movie early. As everyone packed up, I saw disappointment on their face, especially the kids. It broke my heart, and that was the moment I decided if the HOA wanted a fight, I wouldn't back down. But I wasn't going to fight dirty. I was going to fight smart. I stayed up late that night researching. I dug through local laws, city ordinances, and property codes. I wanted to know exactly what authority the HOA had donned, where their power ended. That's when I stumbled across something interesting. Public event permits. Turns out, if you have a public gathering outside of private HOA jurisdictions, say, in a park or open space, you can legally host events, even with amplified sound or projectors, as long as you have a permit. The city itself controlled those rules, not the HOA. An idea sparked in my head. If they didn't want me showing movies in my backyard, fine. I wouldn't. I'd do something bigger. I filled out the paperwork, paid the small fee, and within a week, I had it. An official public event permit. The paper felt heavy in my hands, like a golden ticket. Suddenly, the tables had turned. I wasn't just going to host backyard movie nights anymore. I was going to host a public movie night and invite the entire town, and the best part? The HOA couldn't do a single thing to stop me. The morning after I received that permit, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring at the piece of paper like it was a weapon. For weeks, the HOA had tried to bully me into submission, sending letters, warnings, and threats. Now I had something they couldn't touch. A way out. A way forward. And more importantly, a way to fight back not with anger, but with joy. The first thing I did was call my closest neighbors, the ones who had always been there on Friday nights with their lawn chairs and snacks. I told them what I was planning, and at first, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then came laughter. Real, excited laughter. They loved it. A public movie night. That's genius. One of them said, "The HOA won't know what hit them." By the end of the day, word had already started spreading. My neighbor's teenage daughter posted on social media, "Our Friday movie nights are moving to the park." Whole town invited. Free, fun, and family-friendly. And just like that, something small began to grow into something huge. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Organizing a public event meant planning, logistics, and money. I couldn't just hang up a white sheet in the park and hope for the best. I needed real equipment, sound, chairs, maybe even food. If I wanted this to work and make a statement, I had to go all in, so I made a list. First, a bigger screen. My little backyard projector wouldn't cut it for a crowd. I searched online and found a local rental service that provided inflatable outdoor movie screens. The kind you'd see at summer festivals, towering over the grass like a giant sail. I booked one right away. Second, sound. I rented a set of professional speakers, nothing too crazy, but powerful enough that everyone in the park could hear without blowing out their eardrums. Third, food. What's a movie night without snacks? I called a few local food trucks, taco stands, an ice cream van, even a kettle corn vendor. Most of them jumped at the chance to be part of it. Family event, community fun. Count us in, they said. Fourth, the movie itself. I wanted something big. Something family-friendly, heartwarming, and fun. Something that would make the whole town feel like kids again. After a few calls, I secured the rights to show a modern animated classic by the time Friday rolled around. I was nervous, but also electrified. The park I had chosen sat right in the middle of town. A wide open field surrounded by trees, with a little playground off to the side. As the sun dipped low, I arrived early to set up. The inflatable screen stood tall against the evening sky, glowing white as the projector flickered to life. Food trucks lined the street, their lights twinkling, the smell of tacos and popcorn filling the air. Volunteers, neighbors, friends, even people I barely knew helped set up folding chairs and spread blankets across the grass. And then, the people came. At first, it was just a trickle. Families with strollers, teenagers on bikes, couples holding hands. But soon, it turned into a flood. Dozens, then hundreds of people poured into the park. Kids ran around with glow sticks. Parents carried coolers, and the buzz of excitement filled the air. It was bigger than I ever imagined. I stood off to the side, my heart racing, watching it all unfold. This wasn't just a movie night anymore. This was a movement. A community coming together because one little backyard tradition had been threatened. And then, right as the crowd settled in, I saw them. 3 HOA board members. Standing near the edge of the park, arms crossed. Their faces twisted in disbelief. They looked out at the sea of people, neighbors they thought they controlled on for once. They had no power. They couldn't find me. They couldn't shut it down. I had the permit. This wasn't just legal, it was official. When the first scene of the movie lit up the screen, the crowd erupted in cheers. The sound of laughter, the smell of popcorn, the glow of the screen against the night sky was pure magic. Families cuddled under blankets. Strangers shared snacks. Children's eyes lit up with wonder. I glanced at the HOA board members again. They were still standing there, but their smug expressions had turned to frustration. One of them pulled out a phone, probably trying to call someone, maybe even the city. But it didn't matter. I had already checked with the local police, and they knew about the event. Everything was by the book. For once, the HOA was powerless. That night, as the credits rolled and people clapped, cheered, and hugged, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Victory. Not the kind that comes from tearing someone else down, but the kind that comes from building something bigger, stronger. When the crowd finally began to disperse. Families waving goodnight, kids sleepily carried 2 cars. I stood there under the stars, overwhelmed. What started as a small backyard tradition had become something far greater, but I had no idea just how big it was going to get, because the next morning, my phone was blowing up. Photos and videos of the event had gone viral. Social media was flooded with clips of the massive screen glowing in the park, kids dancing with glow sticks, families smiling together. People tagged it with captions like "the best night in our town in years" and "community over control." Local news outlets picked it up, then regional ones. Before I knew it, my little rebellion against the HOA had become a story spreading far beyond our neighborhood. And if I thought the HOA was angry before, I hadn't seen anything yet. The morning after the big movie night, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, calls, social media notifications, I couldn't keep up. Friends, coworkers, and even people I hadn't talked to in years were messaging me. "Dude, I saw you on Facebook. Your movie night is trending on TikTok. Was that you on the news last night?" I opened my phone, and there it was. Dozens of clips of the park, the glowing screen, and the massive crowd all over social media. Hashtags like #MovieNightFreedom and #HOAVs community were spreading. People weren't just celebrating the event, they were rallying behind the message. A small-town story had struck a nerve with people everywhere, and while the community was buzzing with joy, I knew someone else was fuming. The HOA, by mid-morning. I had 3 new letters in my mailbox, all from the HOA board. They accused me of inciting unrest, damaging the reputation of the neighborhood, and violating the spirit of the HOA charter. Spirit? I didn't even know the HOA had a spirit. The final letter was the most ridiculous. It warned me that if I continued reckless public activities, they would pursue legal action for disturbing the harmony of the community. Harmony. The community had never felt more united. I tossed the letters aside, but I knew they weren't going to stop there. The HOA was used to winning, used to controlling people with intimidation and paperwork. And now, in front of the whole town and the whole internet, they had been embarrassed. People were laughing at them, mocking them, calling them petty dictators. They wouldn't take that humiliation lightly. Sure enough, the next HOA board meeting was chaos. I didn't usually attend, but that night I walked into the community center just to see what they were plotting. The room was packed. Board members sat stiffly at a long table while residents filled the seats. I recognized many faces from movie night neighbors who had laughed and cheered with me in the park. The HOA president, a man named Carl with a permanent scowl, slammed his gavel. Order. We need order. But there was no order. People were shouting, demanding to know why the board had tried to shut down something that brought the community together. Parents stood up to talk about how much their kids loved the event. Seniors explained how it gave them something to look forward to. Even teenagers got up and defended it. Carl tried to argue. This is about rules, regulations, property values. A woman in the back yelled, "Property values? You think movie night hurts property values? It's the best thing that's happened here in years." The room erupted in applause. Carl's face turned red, his knuckles white as he gripped his gavel. This is not how things work. We have rules for a reason. I stood up slowly, holding my permit in one hand. Actually, Carl, you don't have authority over this. The city approved it. It's not against the law, not against any ordinance, and certainly not against your rules. You can't stop it. The room went silent for a moment. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the whole room was cheering. The HOA board looked like they'd swallowed lemons. That was the night the balance of power shifted. For years, the HOA had ruled with intimidation. But now, the community had seen that their power had limits. After the meeting, neighbors came up to me, shaking my hand, patting me on the back. "Don't stop," they said. "We're with you." And I knew then that this was no longer just about movies. It was about something bigger. It was about standing up to people who thought they could control every aspect of our lives, so I doubled down. The next week, we held another movie night in the park. This time, even more people showed up. Families from nearby towns drove in. Food trucks lined the street, music played before the movie, and local businesses even started sponsoring the event. The HOA tried to send security again. But when they arrived and saw hundreds of people, they just shook their heads and left. The city police even stopped but not to shut us down, but to enjoy some tacos and watch the film. That was the moment I realized I had not only beaten the HOA, had made them irrelevant, but Carl and the board weren't done yet. They were too proud, too stubborn to back down completely. And in their desperation to regain control, they made a mistake that would change everything. Carl, the HOA president, couldn't sleep after that board meeting. I could tell by the way he looked the next time I saw him, pale, exhausted, and angrier than ever. To a man like him, losing control wasn't just frustrating, it was humiliating. And humiliation breeds desperation. A week later, a certified letter arrived at my door. Not the usual HOA scolding, this one came from their attorney. The letter accused me of creating a public nuisance, endangering the safety of children, and even profiting off community property. Profiting. I hadn't made a dime. In fact, I'd spent my own money to rent the screen and speakers. The food trucks were independent vendors, not mine. It was a lie, plain and simple. They demanded I stop all future movie nights or face a lawsuit. Now, most people would panic at the word lawsuit. That's exactly why HOAs love to throw it around. But here's the thing. I had done my homework. I had my city permit. I had spoken to the police. I had followed every single rule. They didn't have a legal leg to stand on. Instead of backing down, I took that letter and posted it online. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. People couldn't believe the HOA was threatening to sue over movie nights. Comments poured in. "Are you kidding me? A lawsuit over this? This HOA is out of control. Stay strong. We've got your back." The support was overwhelming. And it gave me an idea. If they wanted to play hardball, I'd play harder, but not with lawyers. With people, with community. With joy, I decided the next movie night would be our biggest yet. Not just a movie and event. A festival. A celebration of freedom and community. I called local bands and asked if they'd play a short set before the movie. They said yes. I asked small businesses if they wanted to set up booths. They jumped at the chance. The local ice cream shop even offered to sponsor free cones for kids. Word spread fast. Flyers went up around town. Posts went viral. By the time the night arrived, the park looked like a summer carnival. String lights hung from trees. Music filled the air. Kids ran around with painted faces and balloon animals. And families from miles away gathered on blankets and lawn chairs. And then came the twist. Just as the band wrapped up and I was about to start the movie, a squad of police cars pulled up. Blue and red lights flashed across the park. For a split second, my stomach dropped. Had the HOA finally managed to shut us down? But instead of stopping the event, the officers walked over with smiles. The chief himself took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice carrying over the speakers. "We received multiple complaints about this event. But we checked the permits, and everything is completely legal. So we're not here to shut you down. We're here to join you." The crowd exploded in cheers. Kids waved glow sticks in the air. Parents clapped and laughed. The HOA board members, yes, they were lurking in the back, again looked like they'd swallowed nails. The chief wasn't done. This is exactly what community is about. Families coming together, enjoying a safe night, and making memories. We support it, and we'll be here to make sure everyone stays safe. It was a knockout punch. The HOA's big counterattack had backfired. Instead of shutting me down, they had just handed me the ultimate endorsement from the police themselves. That night, the movie played to the largest crowd yet. People sang along to the songs, clapped during the credits, and stayed late into the night, talking and laughing. It wasn't just an event anymore, it was history in the making. But the story didn't end there. Because while I had won the battle, the HOA wasn't ready to surrender the war. And their final move? Well, that one surprised even me. I thought the HOA might finally give up after the police publicly supported us. But Carl and his board weren't built that way. They had dug in too deep, spent too much time and energy trying to crush me. To them, admitting defeat wasn't an option. Their final move came in the form of a community-wide petition. The HOA sent letters to every resident, demanding signatures to ban all large, unauthorized gatherings, whether in private yards or public spaces. They disguised it with words like safety, order, and protecting property values, but everyone knew the truth. This wasn't about safety. It was about control, about punishing me. But something had changed. Months earlier, maybe the community would have been intimidated. Maybe they would have signed just to avoid trouble. But after everything we'd built, the laughter, the movies, the festivals, the people weren't afraid anymore. They were awake. They were united. Instead of signing the HOA's petition, the residents made their own. A counter-petition to remove Carl and the board from power. Within a week, it had more signatures than the HOA's letter could ever dream of. At the next board meeting, the room was overflowing. Parents with kids, seniors with canes, teenagers holding up glow sticks like torches. One by one, people stood up and spoke. This HOA doesn't represent us anymore. You tried to kill the best thing this community's ever had. We don't need rulers. We need neighbors. By the time it was over, the vote was unanimous. Carl and his board were out. I'll never forget the look on his face as he gathered his papers and stormed out of that room. All that power, all that control, gone in an instant. Not because I fought him with lawyers or shouted him down, but because we built something stronger than fear. We built community. In the weeks that followed, the movie nights grew into a tradition. Every summer, families from across town gather in the park, spreading blankets, sharing food, and watching films under the stars. Local businesses sponsor it. Schools promote it. Even the new HOA board attends not to shut it down, but to enjoy it. And me? I still set up my little projector in my backyard sometimes, just for old time's sake. But I smile, knowing that what started as a small backyard tradition has become something much bigger than me. It's funny. Really? The HOA thought they were stopping me. Instead, they gave me the push I needed to create something the whole town could enjoy. So here's the lesson I carry with me, and the one I want you to take away. When someone tries to take your joy, don't just fight back. Build something bigger, something brighter. Because joy is contagious, and when you share it, no amount of rules or threats can stop it. This story isn't just about movies or HOA drama. It's about resilience, about creativity, about turning frustration into celebration, and about the simple truth that people, when united, are stronger than any rulebook. So the next time someone tells you you can't remember this, maybe, just maybe, they're giving you the chance to show the world just how much you can dot. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, keep fighting the small battles with big ideas and never let anyone steal your joy.